Now, what I'm about to go over with you today is absolutely going to blow your mind, so buckle up because this is one you're not going to want to miss. To kick things off, I'm going to create a couple more DIY custom elements to add to my current setup, and I really want this video to capture what's possible, so I'm definitely going to go overboard in hopes of giving you some ideas. First, I'll be using my favorite milky white diffuser channels from Mazada and installing them around the outside edges of the screen. These are my go-to profiles because you can get them in 1 or 2 meter long lengths, black or aluminum in color, and they perfectly diffuse strips that have 60 LEDs per meter. To get them installed, I'm going to be using some removable 3M sticky pads to avoid using the mounting hardware. Now, another thing to mention is that these channels can be cut to size as well as cut at angles using a miter saw or just a regular hand saw if you really wanted to do a custom install. So as I'm getting these set up, I do want to point out that even though I'll be using this on my 120-inch ALR screen with the UST projector setup, this method will work on any size screen, any type of projector, as well as any size or type of TV or monitor. Now once the profiles are up, it's time to move on to the lights, and you can pretty much use any addressable LEDs that you want, but my personal favorite option, especially on smaller type designs like this, continue to be the 5V SK6812 strips, which is what I'll be using here. And if you've never heard of this type before, what makes it unique is you get all the individually addressable RGB color options with the added bonus of a dedicated white diode. I'll go ahead and get the LED strip set up in the channel and work my way around the perimeter. I ended up needing a little over 500 LEDs to cover the distance, and while there are certainly many ways to connect strips together without needing to solder, I'll always put a plug in for learning this skill if you think tinkering with LEDs might be a hobby you're wanting to explore. I'll leave a link to my Soldering for Beginners video I made that goes over all the basics with extreme close-up footage and commentary if it's something you're interested in checking out. And finally, once the strip is in place, I'll finish by tidying up the wires and then snapping on the milky white diffuser covers. Now, the next thing I wanted to incorporate was some edge-lit LED acrylic. I have used this before and the effects are incredible. I won't go into too much detail on the product since you can watch the full-length unboxing and setup I already did, or another video where I made some LED signs with it if you're wanting a more closer look at the design. For the lights on this one, I'll be using the iconic WS2812B LEDs that have 100 pixels per meter. I would use the SK6812 for these as well, but I couldn't find them in 100 per meter density, and the 144 per meter strips are too wide to fit the channels. So as far as this product, it is marketed as an LED baseboard system, which I do think there's many other use cases for it, but I thought how cool would it be if you could swap out your wood baseboards for these and have them react to your TV in real time. Once that's done, the next step is to get all of our lights set up with WLED, and my guess is if you're watching this, you're already very familiar and comfortable with that easy process. However, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll leave links to the easy tutorial videos I've already made on how to get everything set up and connected to WLED. This is something anyone with any skill level can do, and I've done complete walkthroughs on getting started using a basic ESP32 device or a couple products that come pre-installed with WLED that'll have you up and running in less than 60 seconds. I now have everything set up to hopefully give you all a good glimpse of what's possible, and this is where the fun really begins. Let's fast forward tonight and pull up the WLED app to quickly turn each of the areas on, starting with what I labeled ALR screen, baseboard lights, floor to ceiling, and media console. So to get started, I'm going to turn on my projector that I have connected to my PC, which I'll get into later, and I'll turn off all the lights except for the media console. Now the thing that's going to make this all come together is a program called Signal RGB, and if you're a gamer, there's no doubt you've already heard of this because it makes all your peripherals regardless of brand, make, or model work under one roof, but they recently came out with WLED support, which is going to absolutely blow your mind. Once you've downloaded and opened the program, go under Install and make sure to click the Screen Ambient setting. Then under My Effects, go to Customize, and on the right you have different picture modes that you should definitely play around with, my personal favorite being HD, followed closely by Standard. Next, go to Network on the left-hand side, and this is where you're going to find support for some of the major what I would call non-PC component companies and programs. I haven't yet played around with the Govee integration and some of the other ones, although it's definitely something I will be looking into here in the near future and making a video on if people are interested. Now before moving on, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Aura. So this is me signing up for their free 14-day trial, and during the setup process, one of the many things they do is scan the internet for data brokers that have your personal information. These data brokers then make a fortune selling your information to spammers, scammers, and other entities that want to know more about you. Now, Aura was able to find 30 such instances of my personal information being in the hands of these companies. Then, with one click, Aura sends out a notice to have my information removed from their systems, which they are legally required to do when asked. Their all-in-one platform offers antivirus protection, credit monitoring, credit lock, financial transaction alerts, secure VPN, identity protection, parental controls, 24/7 US-based customer service, and much, much more. I'll leave a link in the description for you to start your own free 14-day trial, so please make sure to check them out. Thank you all so much, and now back to the video. Keep scrolling down until you see WLED and select it. Signal RGB automatically scanned for any lights and found all 4 areas it had already set up and running on WLED. You can also search and add by the IP taken directly from the WLED app, which is found right here. And another thing I recommend doing that you'll thank me for later is to go back into the WLED app, choose one of your lights, click configure, and go into Wi-Fi, and then give it a unique name right above the client IP address. And finally hit save and connect. Signal RGB will pull that name and put it right here so you know exactly what lights you're dealing with. And to make this as easy to follow as possible, we'll go through these one at a time, starting with the media console. Go ahead and click link, and as soon as you do, you'll notice that our media console is now connected. From here, click on devices and you can see all of our PC components, but we want to click on the WLED icon to get our media console dialed in. With the light bulb, I can control the brightness like I'm doing here. But what I need to do next is found directly underneath in the icon that has the 3 dots connected with lines. So what you're seeing here is the program already pulled the number of LEDs we have set up from WLED, and it usually defaults to creating a segment around half that number, which is why you see 74 here. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this default segment, and as soon as I do that, the lights are going to go red, and then I need to click the plus to tell Signal RGB how many lights I actually want. And I'm starting with the media console because it's super easy. I want all 148 lights to be one segment, so I put 148 in the LED count and hit create. And as soon as I do that, Signal RGB is now sending data to the entire strip instead of the 74 LEDs it was doing before. You'll notice though that it's not quite right in terms of mirroring the screen, which brings me to the real magic. Under My Rig, go into Layouts and you're going to see a whole mess of all the things connected to Signal RGB. On the right, scroll down until you find Media Console and expand. Right-click on Custom Strip and choose Hide Other Devices to make it easier to see. You're presented with the line on the screen that represents your segment of 148 LEDs that you can now move to anywhere you want. And since my media console is on the floor, naturally I'm going to want it to mirror any colors that are at the bottom of my screen. You also have the ability to increase or decrease the size of the line as well as rotate it in any direction, allowing you to dial things into perfection. So by now, if you're anything like me, you probably have goosebumps. Being able to this easily map any lights running WLED to any part of my screen with zero coding just doesn't seem real. I'll move things around a little bit more to get them to a spot that looks like it's perfectly lined up with the green and blue lights that I have set as my desktop wallpaper before moving on to our next area. I'm now going to set up the floor to ceiling lights, so let's go back to network, scroll down to WLED, and link those to Signal RGB. I do want to back up for a second though and give a little bit of context. These corner lights obviously are extended beyond the screen, which is fine, but for best results, I wish I didn't have these bottom areas since it doesn't exactly match to a space on the screen. So with that being said, here's what you can do. Go to devices and you'll see our recently added floor to ceiling lights that we can click on. Then I'll again be deleting the default segment that was created, and this time I'm going to first create a custom segment that has 35 LEDs, which will correspond to the LEDs that are in this area. Next, I'll create another segment that has 100 lights that will be for this section. I'll do a third segment that again has 35 and will be for the bottom right portion, and then a fourth segment where I accidentally put an extra light that will be at 101. Now before mapping things out, you can actually go into the settings for each of our created segments, and in this particular scenario, I'm going to turn the lights off for the ones we designated at 35. After that, let's head over to Layouts, find the floor to ceiling lights on the right hand side, left click on one of our segments and hide other devices, so we're left with our one strip. So for this one, since the lights are going vertical, I'll need to rotate the segment to match the orientation, and then again, it's just moving things around and playing with the size to get things perfectly synced up. Once the left side's complete, I can then do the same thing for the right. From here, let's go ahead and set up the baseboard lights, and by now you're probably getting the hang of things. I'll link it together and then go to devices to set up the segments, but there is one thing I want to highlight that's important. Since this is our high density 100 LED per meter strip, there's a total of 247 lights. And as of now, when you create a segment like we've been doing, it lets you have a max of 150 pixels per segment. So since I need to get to 247, I'll just create one segment with 123 lights and then a second segment with 124 to get to the total. There is a way around this, but it's a little bit too in-depth for what I'm wanting to cover in this video, so doing it this way will work just fine. Heading back over to layouts, this is where the resize function is so crucial because I can have the one strip that represents about half my total lights sized down to cover about half the screen, and then do the same thing for the other segment. And I hope you're really beginning to appreciate just how easy it is to customize every aspect of whatever lighting components you've incorporated. And finally, we can get the lights around the ALR screen set up. Once they're linked together, I again have to do a little bit of tweaking due to the 150 limit. You can split things up however you want, but for my first segment, which starts here and goes this way, I'll be doing the max of 150. This, however, leaves 10 LEDs left to finish the run, which will be my segment 2. Going up, I can do the total of 93, then at the top going right, I'll do another 150, followed by 10, and then finishing things up with 93 going back down. Let's head back over to the layouts and start mapping out each segment to the corresponding location. And because these lights are so close to our screen, you can see just how accurate the color mapping is. Now as I'm finishing up getting these calibrated, I hope your mind is starting to think of all that can be done with this. You can literally build anything you want using your favorite addressable LEDs and put them anywhere in your setup. And this really hits home for me because before this was a thing, on every video I did when showcasing the final results, I would manually change all my lights to something that matched the theme of what was on the screen to make everything look cohesive. And as you can probably imagine, not having to do that anymore makes me extremely happy. So just like that, we've mapped out all of our lights to the exact areas I want. Now go ahead and click the save icon, give the layout a name, and then save it. This is awesome because if you end up watching any widescreen type content that has a black bar going across the top and bottom, I can change the layout to match the format, save it, and then go back and forth as needed. Now as far as getting the signal to the projector, or in many cases what will more than likely be a TV, I tested things out on just a regular HDMI cord run from the PC to the projector, which worked perfectly. But I also bought about 4 different wireless HDMI transmitters, and this is the one that ended up working the best. And if you want a more complete rundown on this product, let me know and I can put together a full video, but it really is plug and play and a pretty straightforward setup process. Now I've really just scratched the surface of all that Signal RGB is able to do, and everything I've done in this video is available via their free application, as well as hundreds of other awesome RGB effects. And if there's enough interest, I could very well see myself doing some deeper dive tutorials of this program down the road. Another nice thing is that they have a very active and dedicated Discord community, so make sure to follow them there to get help with any questions you might have along your journey. Now, at least for me, what I enjoy most about this setup is being able to throw up a cool image or lo-fi YouTube channel on the screen, instantly having the entire room match the vibe, put on some music, and just chill out after what usually is a stressful day at my normal job. And having a space like this to unwind, even if it's just for 15 minutes, really does make a difference for me. So that about does it for this one, but I hope you enjoy the final footage, and as always, thank you for your continued support.